I'm sure he's thinking about in the immediate vicinity of the building. Yeah. Nothing specific. We've talked about a couple of things, and I don't think either of these are on the table, so I'll mention them. We had some discussion, or at least it was mentioned, maybe some parking space on the west side of the street. Okay. There was also the possibility, we talked about the air quality in the museum and the possibility of putting air conditioning in there. And he thought that was interesting, but I think he looked into that, and the cost or the benefit of it was, he wasn't interested in necessarily pursuing that, but that's the kind of thing we're looking at.
Go ahead. Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Back up to Waterfront Marina. So I just wanted to double check whether I heard correctly, Jerry. You're going to look into the almost 20,000 under the Killam Wharf expense and the 8,000 for the building maintenance? Did I catch that correctly or incorrectly?
I know there was the $25,000 amount was the light maintenance. That's again looking to replace 6 more light fixtures down there. I'll find out what the 20,000 is on the Killam building maintenance line.
Killam building.
And you mentioned another one there for 8,000? Was it? I don't see that.
Killam building, the lights. No. I'm missing something. I'm sorry. You have to slow down for it. Killam's Wharf expense, just over 19,000, just under 20,000.
That's page 25, about 10 lines down.
Yep.
And then the fourth line from the bottom, Killam building maintenance. I missed that. It sounded as though there was some discussion, or you were going to get information. That's what I'm asking for clarification on.
Okay. So you're looking for information on what makes up the 19,000 this year?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Like, obviously there are repairs.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Below the marina and the Sweeney's Museum, that's where we have the YMCA contributions, 59,000.
But isn't that's a little more than last year, right? It's about 13,000 more than last year?
Yep. We've paid the same for 2 years now.
We paid 59 the last 2 years?
And then there's been a little bit of money for Milo and the ballparks that Rodney uses in the Parks Department, basically. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Could you explain why there is nothing under the playground program line? Because that's taken out of our, our 50-50 share that goes to the municipality?
Yeah, that
The,
would have been
recreation
something that would have been.
contract that's part of that?
Yeah, there was probably a project done years ago, and we had a budget line for the playground program, which is now under.
Okay, so we can
Might have been a
strike that out.
one-off, or it might be something that's in the recreation department now.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I think that's a hangover from, or carryover, sorry. A carryover from the days when the Boys and Girls Club used to run that program, and we may have funded it separately than the general Boys and Girls contribution that we used to give as a grant.
Okay.
Yeah, so no one wanted to be first, I guess, on
Oh, my goodness.
cost
Everybody's
reductions.
shy. Everybody's shy today, I guess. So they go back to the front page, if I may, for
Yep.
a second. Not the cover page, but the first page with numbers on it, page 1. You see there that we have a $473,771 deficit. Now that has to be erased, has to be 0 or in the positive range before we can approve a budget. because by law, we cannot approve a budget with a deficit. If we approve a budget that is break even or better, and we incur a deficit, we need to fund that deficit in the next fiscal year. So the idea is you're not allowed to run a deficit. So, and you're certainly not allowed to budget a deficit. So the challenge is how do we come up with $473,771 of either revenue increases or cost reductions? And so our intention this morning was to go through the budget and let you look at the numbers, and if there were things that jumped out that you wanted to specifically give consideration to put them on the screen behind me. So far we're at zero. Because everybody's shy this morning. And the truck tires don't count because that's just an example.
Councillor Langell?
Well, I'm going to cut to the chase. You guys have obviously looked at it. You guys obviously have some recommendations. So what's your recommendations, besides putting the taxes up?
Told you we'd get to this.
Yeah. the exchange of looks here was just like, I can't believe you were right, Jerry.
Again.
I might owe him a coffee. Go ahead, Jerry.
I hope we have 2, 4, 6, 7 copies.
I don't. There's not a lot. We looked at,
I don't make enough now.
there's a big one-time hit this year, and that's with the compost plant. So we could look at saying, okay, we're going to take some money out of our operating surplus from prior years to cover off this one-time hit this year.
How big's the one-time hit?
About 275.
And just how would that be felt?
Oh, we have a surplus account from every year, like Jeff said, if we have surpluses, it goes into an account we kind of keep it. If we have deficits, it goes off against that account. Of course, if we have deficits, we're supposed to fund it in the future years. But we are allowed to use that surplus account to balance the budget. But so it's a council's decision to take some money out of surplus to balance the current year budget. So you're not allowed to budget a deficit. So, but you can balance it out by using that surplus. Of course, if you don't have a surplus built up, there's nothing there to use.
What does their surplus
Can we-
bank account look like? I'm sorry.
This is scary. I was going to ask the same
What's
question.
the balance of our surplus bank account at the moment?
Top of my head, I'm not sure, but it's fairly big, like $1 million, I'm thinking.
We can get you that.
I can get you that number, but
I would be very, sorry, thank you.
it's big. But more than
I'd be
covered
very sensitive to
275.
the percentage of that
Yep.
we would encroach on. I would like to know how much is in there first.
Yep. If we,
See Don. Pam, see Don.
Were you gonna,
I
Councillor
was gonna say
Mooney?
you could email Sybil if you want to. She'll catch her before lunch. She may not know where to look, but there's actually a.
What's that? What was?
So, we looked at that. We also looked at, in this year's budget, I think there was an increase in the sidewalk repairs. So maybe not do that. Sidewalk repairs, so under transportation, look here.
Did you want to ask your question now, Phil?
Yeah, it's just basically, just in the surplus account, I'd like to know the number like Councillor Dawes. And I think with capital projects like sidewalk repairs, I think that's what people are actually looking towards. That 275, is there, I know, when's the last time, Jeff or Jerry, that we ran a deficit?
We've not run deficits since. I've
Since
been
you've been
here.
here, Jeff?
No,
I think there was one year we did, and it was a result of a change in accounting policy on how landfill closure liabilities and pension liabilities were accounted for.
So you had to upfront it all 1 year or something?
Well, they gave us a couple of years to fund those, I think 3 to 5 years to fund it, and we funded it quicker than they allowed us. But that deficit resulted from a accounting policy change, not from an operational issue. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. If you remember the indicators, I'm going to rant a little bit.
Yep.
If you remember the financial indicators presentation with all the graphs, you might recall that it did show the town of Yarmouth running a deficit in the last 5 years. We have not. We met with a member of the Service Nova Scotia staff to go over the indicators, and what we found there was actually shocking. See, the town of Yarmouth rates for our depreciation every year. We charge our ratepayers what we use up in our tangible capital assets every year, and they pay it dutifully with their taxes, and we reinvest that money in capital out of the capital fund. What Service Nova Scotia has done is they have looked at what we do and they say, oh, well, that's different, so we're going to treat them different. So even though we rate, if they look at us the same way they look at every other municipality, which means they subtract the depreciation cost off before they get to your bottom line, we would have surpluses in the area of $1.7 to $2 million a year. They think that looks like too much, so they don't do that for us. They do it for everybody else. They don't do it for us. And then they put out these statistics and say, there you go, there's how you compare to everybody else. So we have sort of an ongoing discussion right now with Service Nova Scotia about the municipal indicators, because frankly, if they're not going to apply the same formula to every municipality, then they really are not comparable. We are aware of this one example where they've made an exception because they felt that it looked bad. We don't think it looks bad. And we don't know what other exceptions they're making, so the statement I've given them is I will not use the municipal indicators to inform council if I can't rely on them as being reliable and dependable and fair. And from what I've learned recently is up to this point, at least on that one indicator, it hasn't been reliable and fair. So we have that discussion ongoing.
And we had that discussion with Minister Fury here when he was here a couple months ago.
Well, we had the discussion about how we go about doing that and how we think that is the right way to deal with your depreciation is to fund it. And he seemed to understand that. Now, the staff have decided that it doesn't look good for the town of Yarmouth to have a $2 million surplus, nor does it look good on other municipalities to actually leave their depreciation cost in, because then everybody else would be running deficits 5 years out of 5 years kind of thing. So their solution to this problem was to treat us differently, and they shouldn't treat us differently. It should expose a fiscal reality is that we're doing something that is sustainable in the long run for the community to fund the use of our tangible capital assets. So we'll see where it goes. I think they're going to see it our way before we're done.
So, and in the previous government, our government, the previous government, we were lauded for the way we did our financial accounting with funding our depreciation. We're the only one out of, like, now, I don't know, with the dissolution of Spring Hill and Canso, I'm going to say 53 municipal units. We were the only ones out of 55 at that time that funded our depreciation. So, and with the municipal indicators, we get penalized for that, for good fiscal management over the last several years when we've decided to fund, or previous councils decided to fund depreciation. It's got to be, we got to have that talk with now that we have a truly dedicated Minister of Municipal Affairs now, with Mr. Fury, we got to have that talk with him again and say, you know, because there's going to be, when's the new municipal thing come out, Jeff, the numbers come out, is that April the 1st that they're going to release, you know, how the towns and how the other municipal units are doing?
The new indicators?
New indicators. Next couple of days?
Those have been released already? Or we were looking at draft,
We were
so,
looking at drafts still.
so I'm not sure what their timeline for release is, but
was
what we
soon.
saw were draft, and the Service Nova Scotia people have been going around to municipalities to make sure that everybody's putting the right information in the right lines in their financial information return to make sure that the indicators are comparable. And then we find out that after they get all the right numbers, they don't apply the same formula to every municipality.
Then what's the incentive to put the right numbers in there?
Well, that's kind of our, I mean, or to do the right thing.
That's right.
As
Do the right
we
thing,
have. And so anyway, we're having that discussion with staff, and you need to be aware of it because the spring workshop is coming up, and if this is not resolved before then, you should take the opportunity, and in fact, up until that time, take the opportunity when you have the ear of the minister or our MLA to express some concern. And I'll say this, is that I read on the weekend that Mayor Clark up in Cape Breton has some issues with the province and how transfers go back and forth. And he specifically referenced issues he had with the municipal indicators. Now, I'm sure it isn't the same issue, but my point is that the municipal indicators are being looked at and relied upon for important policy decisions. And if they are not fair and reliable, then there is a chance that government will make inappropriate assumptions or conclusions about what they see in the indicators. So our concern is just that they are reliable statistics and not just numbers of convenience.
So Jerry, so you're talking about taking 275 out or a portion thereof. What do you feel comfortable with? Or do you have to look what the reserve fund is?
Well, I know it's been, I know it's covered off. I just forget the exact amount, but I was sure it was like the $1 million range in our contributed surplus account.
Okay.
Good? Counselor McIsaac, you're on. Oh, sorry.
No, it was.
Were you going to finish?
Okay, I was I'm just listening to Jerry, and Jerry said perhaps we could defer some sidewalk maintenance stuff. I think infrastructure would be the last thing that I would suggest that we not do, especially sidewalks and what have you, because, and paving, what have you, because that's part of a safety issue and stuff, and we don't do enough of it for the small budget that we have to do it. So if we have $1 million or more in surplus, the cost of not doing our infrastructure, where we look at any infrastructure things to cut or trim back, I wouldn't like to see that. I much rather use, if we have a surplus, let's look into the surplus or look elsewhere where we can look in and cut. It might be in-house, it might be ticket items at a wish list or whatever. I don't know. I'm not, this is a bunch of numbers, and it's too hard to digest in 2 hours. And there's probably more information that needs to be asked and to be given. So if you're asking me what I think about shortfalling the infrastructure, any infrastructure item that we have as a wish list or in place, my thought on it is no. And if we have $1 million in surplus, I would seriously look real hard, and if we have to make up a shortfall, let's make up a shortfall in that.
I guess when we looked at it, it was that we budget and spend roughly $125,000 a year, and Dave's department decided that they wanted to add $25,000 in this year's budget. So we were just going to say we wouldn't add it this year because of the year that we're looking at. So it wasn't that it would be the same budget we've had in the last 3 years. We just wouldn't increase it this year to try to keep things under control. The capital side is the capital side. So just, that's why we picked the sidewalk repair line as a possible $25,000, because we did, in this budget, in Dave's wish was to increase it by 25. So we just wouldn't increase it.
Yeah, go, I'm going to,
Yeah, I
Just a
just shut it off.
suggestion.
Yeah, I realize it is a suggestion, but I would say to that the $25,000 probably won't take in, it would help, but it's not going to do what really needs to be done. And if you just keep it as it is, it just stays as it is and it doesn't do any more. $25,000, I'm looking at Water Street, for instance, could do a lot more work where it needs to be done. And I'm not saying taking anything from our other street, other parts of in the town of Yarmouth, but there is a lot of work needs to be done on the waterfront. And if it's $25,000 that we put in there for more, I'd like to see that stay there and take it from somewhere else if we can. So and we're just talking about this now, so, and that's all it is. But I would like to keep it just the way that it is for me.
Counselor Langell, you were next.
No, I
You
think
had
Counselor
your-
Dawes, she was-
Okay, Counselor Dawes, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, you like something for me? Oh, I'm on, all right. What it comes down to is, 25,000 is a lot of money when you don't have it. It's not a lot of money when you do have it. What does the 25,000 give us? What's the 25,000 going to cost us? Is it going to cost us like the 10 feet of sidewalk? We don't, I certainly don't know. We have to know what the frills and the no frills are of our needs, what our, actually, what we need to determine is what our needs are, what our essentials are, and what our, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have, wanna have list. And can we get back to you two, because your fingers are on that pulse a lot stronger than ours. Present experienced company excluded. There are some things that I would see as being, they're not essential, we really don't need it this year, but on the other hand, yeah, maybe we do. There's a lot that we all have, that we've also put on our list because of the ferry coming this year. And if we lose the one time to make your first impression, it's gone.
Well, I guess in going through this, I wouldn't want to recommend that we start using our accumulated surplus to balance our budget.
No.
I suggest
No.
the 275 because this is a one-time big item that's happening in operations. And it's a tough budget year without that. Without that number, you're still looking at another $200,000 we got to trim somewhere. So I didn't want to say, leave everything in and let, any department increase their budget and we'll just cover it off with the operating surplus. So my suggestions were use the surplus for this one-time big $275,000 item. I wouldn't want to start using the surplus to help increase budget lines by 5,000, 10,000, 25,000 throughout the budget.
Okay,
Okay, I'll go with the majority. I have an extremely low pain threshold when it comes to encroaching on capital. I think 30% is just a little too high for me, but I will go with the majority.
The other one that we did mention, it did come up, and it was on the traffic light repair. There was an extra $25,000 in this year's budget. And I'm pretty sure now, Jeff, after seeing it on this list, it must have been our Main Street, the one right here on the corner, upgrades on that. Yeah. And I guess, from an administration point, not the engineer's point of view, we're saying it works now, so why spend the $25,000 to upgrade it? So we'd look at reducing that. Environmental health building maintenance.
What was the number? It was 25?
That was 25. And in environmental health, there was building maintenance, and just to confirm with the engineer, whoever that stuff has to get done this year, but there's an increase of 25,000 we thought we could take out of that. Parks in general, there's a lot of small maintenance and repair lines and different things throughout that we thought if we just went to the park staff and said, listen, you got to just trim your budget by 25,000, that they could. They might have, a dozen things they could reduce by $2,500 to come up with that number, but we thought it would be possible for our park staff to just reduce their total budget by 25,000. And we thought that we could do the same in the marina. We could look at the marina operations and say, you just have to trim it by 10,000. You just take it back to the staff and say, Dave and his supervisors and say, in the marina budget itself, here's your section. Trim it by $10,000. So they might have 5 lines they can trim by 2,000 each, but we would leave that up to them. And the last thing that we had written down, or I'd written down, was with the grant to the waterfront. It's at $130,000 on an annual basis. That normally gives them some money that they can set aside for help fund capital projects down the road. If, you know, we've got some infrastructure money for them in future years anyway, so we looked at, we could potentially reduce that grant by $50,000 for this year. Their total operations don't require the full 130. We normally give them enough that they can not spend it all and then have some money in the bank after the fact. So we could look at paying them more in the lines of $80,000 this year, and that would give them the money to operate. It just wouldn't give them money for capital. That's all that we came up with from our first go through, and it totals $435,000, not the $475,000.
Every light's flashing.
Yep, Counselor Dennis is on.
I was just wondering about the tree planting, if that was something that we could do without this year for $12,500.
What section are you in the parks?
Page
is it?
24. Under parks maintenance.
Your worship,
Yeah,
if we could, I've just thrown that on the board there, so
okay,
if we can sort of come back and
Good.
debate these after we've got all the
Perfect.
ideas on the board.
perfect.
Okay.
No debate, just answers, okay? Who's up? Counselor Landry, you're up.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, Jeff or Jerry. On the, turn my page, on the compost facility, I noticed that we're also funding depreciation there. Of 90,000 and change. I don't have the page in front of me right now. Is that 90,000 and change depreciation part of the 275,000 one-time compost cost? So why are we depreciating a facility that might?
It's not a one-time cost. The facility's still there, still has useful life, so we'll continue to incur that cost. That's
So it'll
not-
be a $90,000 a year figure to
For the next couple
depreciate
years.
that
I took
building?
a look at it, and it does drop, I think, in the third year. It's 90 for the next 3 years. And then a portion was some equipment that was purchased that would be fully depreciated, and it dropped to around 70,000 at that point.
Could we look at our depreciation formula?
Sorry?
Could we look at our depreciation formula for this year?
Could we look at the?
Look at the depreciation formula. I mean, you obviously are applying a formula for depreciation. You know, looking at all of these things and listening to some of the discussion, I see no problem with the compost costs. I agree with Danny on the sidewalk maintenance. We've got to do that. It's in pretty hard shape. Our traffic lights are archaic. In fact, we were told by our engineer that we literally can't get parts for them anymore. Building maintenance, similarly, these are things you've got to do, but I'm looking at our depreciation as something you don't have to do, or for at least, it's good to do, but I'd much rather see us change the depreciation formula as a suggestion than to go into accumulated surplus.
Just
Your worship, if you, just to address that, you can, the formula is established by, I guess, Service Nova Scotia and the accounting standards, so we don't, all we did in that exercise was put a value on all of our assets based on original purchase price. So we add a piece of equipment, it's the purchase price. Then there's a formula for how many years you depreciate, and these aren't things that are made up each municipality at a time. So you can change, you can't really change the formula, I guess, is the conclusion. Whether you fund it or not, you can change. We've always funded it. If you change that decision today, then we have to go back to the capital budget, because that's where the money comes from to pay for capital.
Okay, good, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Good. Counselor McIsaac?
Yeah, thank you, your worship. The candy cane lighting, you're looking at probably around 30 plus. We put that up there, postpone that. I mean, we have alternative lighting that we have been using. These are just niceties. I mean, I don't think Santa's not going to come if we don't put candy canes. I think Santa will still come, and he might come in 2015 or 2016. I mean, it's not if it's a difference between putting in safety for sidewalks or lighting on street lights, I think we're covered to hold off on Candy Cane Lane for a bit, so that's just my take.
If you put cookies out, you get a lawyer and Santa.
You'll always get a lawyer with cookies.
Cookies?
Councilor Mooney, you're up.
And the other thing, and we're this far in the fiscal year, or, you know, starting the new one, in our economic development officer, we got 125,000 budgeted for it. If we don't hire that gentleman or that lady until July, August, September, October, there's a portion there that you could probably save some money.
Go ahead, CAO.
Or is that
It might be
allocated
consultant.
towards that?
Well,
Just
it's not entirely salary, so when we talked about things that we wanted to do in terms of priorities, there were some things that came under there. There was senior-friendly, there was the information thing, so the salary will help with the data collection, but then we might have to use, well, I would suggest that we would use a consultant to help us, once we've got our data, to look at where our high probability opportunities are, because we can think of some that seem like very high probability for our area, but there might be some that we're not really even thinking about, right? So pay a consultant to help us with that, work with NSBI, and then develop our strategy for business attraction, and then get going with business attraction. How much of that will get done this year? I'm not sure, but you know, certainly we could trim there. Throw a number out.
Cookies? You want to trim 25 minutes?
For what, cookies? Christ, I'll give you $100 for cookies. I'll give you the money now. I gotta be kidding.
So you drop that down?
I just
Well, it's good news, Counselor. It's 12:30. We don't have lunch. Don't worry about it. It's what we've been doing for the last 6 months.
Councilor Dodge, you're on.
Thank you, Your Worship. Number 13 under expenditures, environmental development service. Second line from the bottom, community events. There's 40,000, we spent 75,000. Under community events, would you remind me what comes under that heading, please? Because I look at that and
The
I
World
think,
Juniors and Play On came under that.
Those types of events,
big
like those
ones?
big events, if you need some seed money to help track those events, that's where those.
They'd have money set
monies
aside
came
for it.
from. So if they come up, someone comes up to us and say, we're gonna, Play On
Okay.
come back this year and we need 40 grand, then that's where that money would come from.
Yep.
all right, if they came back, if only half of them came back next year and said, we only need 35, that would save us 15. Could we budget 35,000 for that?
We've got a budget there of 40. Last year we used 75, so we did trim it down to 40 again.
Well, we can trim it again, trim it a little more.
But if you're looking to trim it to
if you want to throw a different number out. we'll
throw
put
a
it up.
different number at it, that's
30, 35, I'll throw it out, whoever. How many vote for 30?
down to
35?
30.
We're just discussing, we're just going to get the numbers up now.
All right, fine, I'll go with 30.
Okay, anybody else? Want to have a go at Jerry? Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, just one thing to throw at here. Yeah, just one thing to look at. Yazda. Yeah, just looking at Yazda, we've given 62. There's been some question here, like where are we heading with our other units on Yazda? I understand Claire is could be doing something. Argyle could be doing something. Do we know what anybody's doing, or? Because I'm wondering, we got a fair chunk of change. 62,500 is going into Yazda. So totally, the 4 units, you're looking at,
3. We're looking at 3 units or 4?
well, my understanding, it's Claire's still in there for 25,000, and they're still, I don't know what they're doing. I got no idea. And then it's leveraged, and then it's increased. So, I mean, the Yazda budget is close to $700,000 is what Yazda is playing with, from what I've seen. I'm just inquiring what bang for the buck here. Like, where are we going? What's the direction? And have we looked at that at all? I'm just curious. I know Julie came in before she left the organization and said we had to put in $40,000 to do whatever. And-
The short answer is that we have. You referred to the notice of motion that was made at the Cleric Council, was reported in the media. We did meet after that CAOs and looked at the ASTA budget and looked at their proposal as it was reported by the media. And this council and the other councils endorsed a position on that, which I don't know personally what the status of that is in terms of have they been notified of that position, so I won't get into it. But in terms of budget requirement for YASTA to do minimum, the 62.5 was the number that was sort of agreed as reasonable to put forward to the three councils, in fact, four councils. And obviously, operations will be a little bit different if you have three partners or if you have four partners.
Go ahead.
Because with the blowing up of Destination as the RTIA, and that's finally gone, Madeline Daw is quite happy about that. So once that's gone, and it is gone, that means we're looking at a new RTIA model. There's a fair chunk of change kicking around that would have been going into the region through destination marketing, through partnering dollars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, you're probably looking at a little over 350,000, which means I would assume YASDA's hunk would be in the 100,000. Has there been discussions at all with NSTA with regard to how that piece of the pie is going to be divided or what's happening there?
I haven't been to the last couple board meetings of YASTA, so I'm not in the know on that.
To be the RTIA.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's a big variable.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a maybe in your pocket, maybe not. Speaking of pockets, though,
It may reduce it, but there's no guarantee it will.
Over here,
guess.
just for a question. See if we can get an update.
Okay, we have, which one of you, I got your lights on, 'cause Sandy was,
It might be me, I think.
okay, go ahead.
Jerry and Jeff, what about, I see in today's, Dan, I never brought the whole paper, I'm only bringing sections now.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
No, I'll save them. The city of Halifax are doing 9 grants for festivals that bring in people, and they're financing it out of their hotel marketing levy. What's the story? I know we had a discussion at this table at one time about the marketing levy and where the money went, but this is where Halifax has taken out, like I think it's bus, just examples are the Blue Nose International Marathon, Busker Festival, Pop Explosion, Jazz Festival, Film Festival, Pride Festival, and a big hockey tournament in Nova Scotia Festival of Music. But what about the marketing levy? Is that,
So there's no direct allocation from the marketing levy into our budget, but I can tell you that the folks who work on the committee with the marketing levy, they had over the last 3 years funded a group sales position within YASTA.
how much is that?
It averaged out to 30,000 a year. of the-
30,000?
It averaged out to that, yeah. It started at 45, then down to 30, then down to 15. So over 3 years, it was an average of $30,000 to support that position to help to attract events. And so obviously, Play On was one that Rick was particularly successful with. The go forward is that YASTA is not interested in continuing that partnership, is my understanding, that they didn't wish to continue. Now, that's my understanding. Now, the Room Levy Group, however, do believe there's value in that position, and so the Room Levy Group may come at it a different way, maybe not in partnership with YASTA, maybe in partnership with the town directly, or some other way to see that kind of a role continue. The room levy hasn't met recently, so I don't have real current information on that.
Good, Counselor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Speaking of the money in your pocket and out of your pocket, how much is back in our pockets, or have we not spent now because the destination no longer exists? How much was our share in that?
Well, the municipalities that are part of YASTA had last year struck a deal with Destination to contribute $10,000 so that we would have municipal memberships for the 4 municipalities, and that all of our not-for-profit organizations would be deemed as members. With Destination wrapping up, there's $10,000 that doesn't have to go in that direction.
Our share was only the 2,500.
That's right. Our share was 2,500.
So the 62.5 you see budgeted under YASTA,
Yeah.
2,500 actually again ends up going to Destination Southwest, and 60,000 was for YASTA
2,500 of that.
of the 62.
Thank you.
Good?
25 up there.
And there may be a possibility, as you say, there may be a possibility of creating a new partnership on operations that could impact that number, and I'll try and get an update from Charles in terms of where that is.
I never did find out who does what. Maybe if I stay on council long enough, the list that I asked for is only going to be 2.
It's going in that.
Okay, where are we? Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so we got a long list there, and I personally would almost, well, I would suggest a 5-minute break at least.
Yeah.
And I guess the next step is really to, is there anything else that should be on this list for consideration? Even if we don't have full information now, as is the case with YASTA, and then let's talk about the list, because obviously some of these things come from one perspective, either the Director of Finance or a councillor, so there have to be some discussion.
Counselor Langell?
Well, okay, maybe I'm really
Tree planting is in parks.
wasted here, stupid or whatever.
Tree planting, 12.5
I gotta
is in
check on
parks.
something here.
So if we said reduce parks by total 25, might be duplicating it.
Because, okay, so how long is this meeting today going to last? Because I was off the assumption we were going to be done at noon, and I made a commitment at the prison 15 minutes ago, and I've got a course starting in 40 minutes. Are we here for the day? Because really, with all due respect, Your Worship, I'd love to know in the future how long meetings are going to be, so I can A, bring a sandwich, because I'm really friggin' hungry right now.
Yeah, me too.
Number one, and I don't mind bringing my own, save $100, but the reality is, could we maybe get a grip and say, okay, council, you're going to be here for 7 hours doing budget, or 4 hours, or 2 hours, because I'd like to, because
So I don't know that anyone knew, because
we're taking a break, which means we're coming back, which means we're here for the afternoon.
I said to Jeff this morning, do you want to come to a meeting I have around about 1:45, and he said we might still be in. So I don't think anybody
Yeah,
realized.
Your Worship, and it's fair to say nobody realized. I mean, a
Yeah.
couple of meetings that we had scheduled previously, and what Jerry and I had planned and estimated the time to be was less than 50% of the time that it took. So I kind of gave up with estimating times.
Yeah.
And made the assumption that we would, I guess I made an assumption, maybe inappropriately so, that we would go until we were at a point where we felt was a good break off. And I didn't want to assume where that was. If it's now, then it's now. But I'm here as long as you need me here, and we will break whenever you say to break.
Okay, well, the headache is saying break soon, because I need to eat. Go, Counselor Dawes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, experience here on council with our colleagues has already taught me that when a committee of the whole is scheduled from 1 to 3, I know that we're not going to we're not going to adjourn at 3:05. 5-hour meetings has become the norm here. I'm sure that and I know that there are rules set in place for that, but they just keep on going. So although I know we were, excuse me, we were scheduled to for this to be over 45 minutes ago, but I knew it was going to take longer. So if we want to stay another hour, I'm game, because that's I put that in my calendar,
Okay,
knowing who we're sitting with.
What do we want to do? Because what has to be done, you want it to be done by Wednesday. We want to be able, if we want to get this budget through, we need to be finished by Wednesday.
Yes.
Is there anything on the radar right now that's really saying to people? And honestly, I mean, I could use, some time to look over that list and, Councillor Langell?
I love to use the expression choo-choo, but I'd like some time on this now. I'll be honest with you, I'm done. We've got some good work done this morning. We've got some things to think about, some to consider, but I am not going to sit today and, okay, we're going to hack in this. I would much rather on Wednesday to come in here early, and we got to come in here at 8:30 or 8 o'clock or whenever it's going to be. Let's start, and what the plan is, we'll try to get it wrapped up as best we can. I don't mind doing that,
Okay, so where does everybody stand on Wednesday? 10 a.m., right? We have it down for 10. You need time in the morning to
9 o'clock would work.
9 o'clock? 9
Just not on a
o'clock, is anybody not able to stay till whatever time it takes? What's that? Till we're done? I have to leave at 1 o'clock. 9, 10, 11, 12, that's 4 hours.
I think we've done all the heavy lifting part anyway. Fighting over that.
Well, we've got a $475,000 issue, and we've got $500,000 on the board, so.
Okay,
We'll put some more stuff on there, too.
What's that?
minus the $100.
Sure.
But that's taking the 275 out of surplus, is that correct?
Yep.
I don't like doing that.
Okay, so here's the other question. We take this home, because I know I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to look through it, and I may have more things to add. I might say, like Dan, I agree with Danny, like the infrastructure. Man, I hate to touch it. So we can come back right away, maybe in the first hour from 9 to 10? Anything we've added, want to add or anything like that? Are you okay with it? Go ahead, you need your... Yeah? Jerry?
Yeah, for sure.
So
For sure.
9 o'clock on Wednesday morning. And we're going to put till 1. If you've got anything else to add in the meantime,
I'll ask Jeff to email it out to you.
let
That
me ask
list.
this. If you get anything to add in the meantime, maybe get it to Jeff, I don't know, tomorrow.
Get to Linda.
Or Linda, get it to Linda. I would just like to see a
Linda,
full,
by the playoffs
full
on
list
Thursday
by,
night.
Well, what would be really good to know, if Jeff could communicate with the other municipal units and find out if YASTA, if you're
He's
going to
doing
be
that.
funding YASTA at full complement,
Yeah.
as everybody agrees with.
yeah. I think he added that to his list. He said he'd ask that question.
And what our reserve fund is, so it's surplus.
Yeah, okay.
That's right, I mean, not people not paying taxes. We have tax revolt now? Yeah. Good.
Oh, it was promised, last
You know what? Respectfully, no, I'm not going there. No, but seriously, I don't, we're looking at sidewalks and lights and sewers and water and everything, and there needs to be a way to pay for it, and that means we need to add to our tax base. To me, it's simple. And a park to boot. So how about I'll entertain a motion to adjourn and we'll meet, okay? We'll meet 9 o'clock. Go ahead, Sandy. Okay? We're gonna meet Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock.
Jerry, you need feedback to do anything to him or no?